Okay, what I'm going to try to do is to do a kind of talk aloud of me using a social networking tool. And this is a bit of a practice really to see how this might work for students on or for subjects that I'm planning to include in my research into the use of social networking in education. And so what I'm thinking of doing is asking them to concentrate on what they learn and what they would like from a teacher or a guide, if you like, in a social network. So I really wish I'd started this video about half an hour ago when I first went to the BA Education and Training Community of Practice in order to record what I did, but I forgot. And so I'm kind of trying to do it in retrospect now. So at the moment I'm looking at the BA Education and Training Community of Practice social network. And the reason I arrived at this was that I opened an email, and in the email it said that Alison Iredale had replied to an introductions forum that I'd set up, and so I clicked on the link in the email and it took me straight to Alison's reply. So let's just have a look at what she said. I'm just clicking on the introductions forum. And the introductions forum says, "Welcome, please introduce yourself, let us know who you are and where in the BA network you're working or studying." So I read Alison's message and she said hello to everyone, and that she works in Oldham, that she's the module tutor for the technology module at the University Centre Oldham, and she was hoping that they could explore this sort of technology as part of that module and invite people if they want to get together for an online chat and to find out more about the social network. So that made me think, well, I'm teaching the technology module at Huddersfield shortly, and I wondered whether we could do some joint activities across the two centres. So I wanted to reply to Alison's message. But in doing that, I noticed that there was a message above from somebody called Steve Cadd, who's a student on the BA. And I didn't want to ignore his message, so I wanted to reply to Alison, but I also wanted to reply to Steve in the same message. So I spent a bit of time kind of composing a message that I hoped would acknowledge Steve's contribution to the forum and raise a question from what he said, and also to say to Alison that I wanted to set up some joint networks. So what I did was just to say that, first of all, to say that I thought Steve was right in pointing out that it's valuable to keep up the momentum in your studies, so that having just finished the first ed, he wanted to carry on to the BA. So I said that I thought it was right, that keeping up the momentum is such a good idea, especially when teaching in FE is such a demanding role. And then to try and move it on to a question to prompt some discussion in the forum, I said to try to ameliorate the fact that it's a challenge and that FE is demanding, that the BA assignments aim to be productive, so that they contribute to the students' working practice rather than being a distraction from it. And I said it would be really interesting to hear from undergraduates as to how effectively we achieve that. So hopefully we'll get some responses to that. So the reason I did that was to try to generate more discussion at the same time acknowledging Steve's contribution. And then I said, Alison, we're going to be using this network at Huddersfield when we start the technology module in a few weeks. Perhaps we could design some joint activities across the centres. For any synchronous activities, our classes on a Thursday evening, and others are welcome to join in too, whether you're doing the technology module or not. So the whole of that message really is attempting to acknowledge the contributions that people have made, so they get some reward for having contributed, and to prompt some further activity. So that's, I think, what my role within the social network ought to be. If I'm the teacher there, I ought to be trying to get people to join in, but not just in a pointless way, to join in order to ask and answer questions or to prompt debate or to move things forward in terms of their study on the programme. So that's why I did that. I then kind of clicked back on the main page and I had a look at what else had been happening. So I think the latest activity record is a really interesting part of social networking, because it seems to me that people leave a footprint. And if it's a normal VLE, they can come and go, and if they don't very purposefully contribute to a discussion, it's as if they've never been there. And so a VLE can feel a bit like a ghost town. It can feel a very solitary experience. Whereas with this social network, if you do anything like leave a comment, like update your profile, like make friends with somebody, it keeps a record of it, and that record is so important in making people feel that they're part of an active community. And it puts a little photograph next to each record of activity. So I think that's really important. And I was just looking back over, my phone goes in, I was just looking back over what people have been doing really over the past few weeks. I took a clip of that activity, because what I'm thinking of doing is keeping a record of everything that people do in the social network in order to include that in a kind of ethnomethodology approach to my EdD studies. So not only will I be asking people about what the network means to them, why they do things in the network, asking them to record this kind of reflection on what they're doing as they go along, I'll also be keeping a record of what they actually do. So my question is, how do people do social networking? And how do they do it in particular with regard to its use in education? So this is a little practice video really to illustrate how they might record that. And hopefully it will also act as a kind of reflection for me on where I am with my research intention.